Welcome back, everybody, to the Boys in Motion podcast. How's it going? We are just three average dudes here, just having some fun, doing endurance sports, and talking about it, of course. I'm Tyler, here joined with Brian and Andrew, and today we're going to dig into something that's very time crucial and a great timing for this episode. We're going to be talking about workouts to be doing 5Ks, because in 2 weeks a lot of you guys will be towing the line at this BIM 5K event, our very own night shift 5K in Niagara Falls. And yeah, we figured there's no better time than to talk about 5K workouts than today. So no fluff this episode, no generic tips and tricks. We're going to give you some specific workouts to try yourself to get that 5K PR.
And here's the thing about the 5K. People underestimate it all the time. They think, I go out to my coffee run a 5K, so is racing a 5K really any different? And let me tell you, it is. I think it might be one of the hardest race distances to get right. If you're used to training for that longer stuff, the way you train for 5Ks is definitely a little bit easier. So there's definitely some tips and tricks and workouts you can incorporate. If you don't want to leave anything on the table, come race day.
Yeah, and look, I'll be honest, I've been there back when I was doing my first 5K block, we'll say, which wasn't a true training block. I had done nothing but slow, kind of easy runs for the months leading up. It felt like great training. I thought I was getting more fit, but then I showed up at race day, went out at what I felt like was a controlled effort, but then I completely blew up at the 2 or 3K mark. The problem there is I hadn't dug into what actually makes 5K training different. I didn't understand the intensity at which you should be training some of those sessions. And so today's episode is the kind of thing that I wish I had before that race. So I'm excited to get into it with a few different workouts that we love to do in prep for our 5K races.
Yeah, it's definitely, we don't want to underestimate the 5K. I'm going to put Kyle on blast right now, and he's been chirping that 5K distance, but I mean, he's never raced one, and he's not even trying to attempt to race one. So I'll give him that chirp right off the bat here, but let's go into some nice workouts.
And this is the thing, like we've talked about it before, 5K versus marathon versus half. Like I would much prefer mentally to race a half marathon than to race a 5K. There's something about that all out effort in that, like, for whoever it is, whether you're running 15 minutes or half an hour, at that distance and that time, it's all out, like VO2 max. It's not the same kind of pain you get for those longer efforts. And so that requires yourself to prep a little bit differently.
100%.
Yeah. So before we dive into the actual workouts, Andrew, you're the king of the night shift 5K. There might be one person still listening who hasn't yet pulled that register button. What are the quick deets?
Yeah. So if you haven't registered, or you know a couple friends that you could wrangle up to run a 5K, even after that, 5Ks are hard pitch that we just gave you, head over to Boys in Motion /night shift. We are racing at Oaks Park, Niagara Falls, April 4th. The first heat will be at 6 p.m. We'll be having 4 heats that will be pace-based. And then to finish up the party, we're going to have a 4x400 meter relay where we're going to mix and match the speeds, just like Tyler's showing you if you're not watching. And then, under the lights. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And best of all, it's only $20 in support of Jumpstart Canadian Tire Foundation. So all of the proceeds are going to them. Meet lots of the local run crews. So it's going to be a fun time. Chip timed. There'll be people out there taking pictures. There will be a DJ, prizes to win, top prizes, Sue 200 entries for the overall winner. I'm probably missing a few things, but those are the quick facts.
Bananas. Actual bananas.
There will be bananas, yes. Lots of bananas.
And Lococo's
thanks to Lococo's.
I'm very excited. Yeah, it's going to be nice.
Yeah, it's super exciting. Like just hearing about all of those like headlining things that are happening is giving me chills. Okay, so for those people who are running it, or if you're just listening, you don't even know us, but you're running a 5K soon, this is what we would do in preparation for that. So we're going to be tossing around a few terms. And the one that I guess we'll start with is lactate threshold. Tyler, what do you have for us on that?
These workouts, these lactate threshold based workouts, are some of my favorite ones to do, as previously mentioned. I mean, I think it's really good to get that base going, and it builds that aerobic ceiling. If you really want to get your higher end but not reach that, top zone 5, you're folded over, you're dead, kind of the more of those typical track workouts, you're kind of a bit under that. So your lactate threshold, you're doing a little bit of a more sustained work piece, and you could do it over more frequent reps. So like a 5 by 1 mile, for example, or like we've seen recently, a lot of people have been doing like 3 by 2Ks or 2 by 2 miles, things like that. So you're kind of a little bit longer effort, in that 8 to 12 minute range, but also having a rest in between.
Now, I compare this, it's kind of working the same systems as the ramp test if you're used to biking, which is kind of what you can hold for an hour. But I'm curious, you mentioned the rest there in between, and I know that is very common, but how do you feel between doing separate reps or doing a continuous 20 to 30 minutes LT? What do you think of that?
I'm dead after the continuous full 20 to 30 at LT. I guess it's another way to train your recovery as well with that rest period, because I find myself within that 60 to 90 seconds, I can fully lower my heart rate down to zone 2, even zone 1 in the low 140s. And then, of course, you bring your heart rate up for the next rep. But yeah, I guess maybe that's the first step to increasing that engine for your lactate, is getting those chunks in, and then of course trying to repeat that on a race day with a longer effort, with upwards to an hour or more, is definitely the goal. But yeah, I definitely find those, as the longer you go, the tougher it gets for me.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I think often at the beginning of my blocks, I personally find that I chunk them more, whereas I get a little bit of fitness, the pace gets a lot less scary. I find trying to do, 25 to 35 minutes at true LT, and LT effort, I think, is important. Sometimes that won't be your goal pace, is very beneficial to get kind of those more extended periods of time. But that's, I guess, a personal preference.
Yeah, I totally agree with that philosophy of the longer you can sustain like a lactate threshold piece, which is brutally hard. Like you can't do that all of the time, but going out for those longer pieces, starting at, I don't know, 15 minutes, moving up to 20, trying to gradually increase that towards 30 minutes is going to be beneficial for your fitness, but it definitely takes time to get there. And you'll see often through plans, you might have, Ty was mentioning at the top, a few split blocks of lactate threshold pace, but then gradually as you increase through the weeks, you're going to start to see those longer lactate threshold pieces. So I think doing them like kind of as cruise intervals, doing those repeats is great. It's starting to raise that aerobic ceiling, but the end goal, both for the physical benefits, but I think even more the psychological benefits of going out at a pretty darn hard pace for like dozens of minutes without taking a rest, build something that's more than just fitness, that is critical for the 5K. Because it's just as much mental at a certain point, the 5K.
Yeah, that's a good point. I just asked Coach Trevor to increase my lactate workout this week, because he had me at 3 times 8 minutes, but it feels like I'm regressing at this point. So I just asked him, hey, please increase. I want to increase my time under tension for my lactate threshold.
All right, moving on to the next. Maybe Coach Trevor will incorporate some of these, because I heard he's been a bit lacking on these efforts, which I find surprising. But that is the true fitness builder for the 5K, the bread and butter, and that's the VO2 max intervals. So that is doing short, generally about, I would say, in the range of 600 to about a kilometer at 5K effort, and then about kind of that equal time rest, or maybe 90%, depending how you feel, and maybe you can scale that back as fitness comes. But that would be, so as an example, maybe 6 to 8 by 800 meter at that 500 or at that 5K effort. So this is really training directly that same system of maximal oxygen uptake, which will be the biggest predictor for your 5K performance. So you're going exactly that speed. Often you're going about or slightly longer than 5K distance throughout the workout, but with those big downs where maybe you're walking a little bit, you're doing a super, super slow jog, you're really not going to be paying attention to the watch. So yeah, these will be your classic speed workouts during your training.
Yeah, I mean, you can't dodge VO2 max work if you want to be fast. At the end of the day, if your goal is to PR, if your goal is to, see what kind of potential you have, whether it's the 5K or the marathon, VO2 max work is going to be critical there. Just mixing long runs along with strides isn't going to build that like high kind of spiky performance that VO2 max work does so well. And I think there's so many classic VO2 max sessions, but I think a great place to start is that like Yasso's 800. So 2 turns of the track, do that 6 to 8 times. And yeah, you get your rest in. It's hard work. You're definitely bent over by kind of the second one. Usually the first one's not quite so bad. You do those week in, week out, you'll definitely see an improvement in your performance.
Yeah, and I think just that track workout, the track feel almost doesn't even, I don't know about you guys, but for me, it doesn't really feel like that typical run. For me, coming from team sports, it feels more like a game day. Like I get hyped all day for that track workout, usually with friends, and you get fired up, you get amped up right beforehand, and you kind of have that ritual and you get in the zone, get ready for that track workout. Helps with the high turnover on the feet, and I think, yeah, it's a good space to bring yourself physically, but also I think mentally, kind of giving you a little bit of that edge of, the race morning, the jitteriness, the get fired up kind of vibe.
Yeah, and this one, the one thing I would consider with the threshold workouts, I would say those are more a focus of effort, LT effort pace, and maybe depending on the elevation, the terrain, the weather, where I would say VO2 max, you're trying to hit paces a little bit more depending on your goals. So when you have these in your week, in your block, really be kind of, where should I be doing these? My local track, what are the conditions? Do I need to get to the treadmill to get this in? Because it really is about spinning those legs at that pace that you want to be going for your 5K. And that's like the most important thing for these, I think.
Yeah, and now I know we're not, super far out from our specific race, but for those that are planning their blocks and looking at how they can kind of progress their VO2 max work, you have 2 levers to pull on, basically. You can either increase the frequency, so the number of intervals that you're doing, or you can increase the distance of said intervals. Those are your 2 levers, and then you just are sort of going all out for those based on whatever your goal 5K pace is. But as you kind of play around, you can customize your sessions. So if you've done a bunch of 800 meters, you can go up to, I don't know, maybe like 1200 meters, and it would still depending on how fast you are, still technically be VO2 max work, but you won't be able to do quite as many sets of that and intervals of that. But I don't know what you think the minimum number of meters would be. I see a lot of people doing these ridiculous workouts. Shout out Mustafa for the 20 by 400 meters. But in my opinion, that's almost too short, because you're like, a minute 15, and VO2 max, like when you talk about cyclists and their VO2 max, like the big workout there is 4 by 4 minutes or 5 by 5 minutes. And so you kind of need to be, I think, above 2.5, 3 minutes to call it VO2 max work.
Yeah, I think that's more like a miler workout, which is like slightly different, even faster, punchier, but also a great workout. Like if you're going faster than your 5K is also another avenue as well as of, if you, there's no making your 5K pace feel comfortable, but if you do run a little bit faster than your 5K, it makes it feel, a little bit more comfortable.
Okay, so I want to talk about, race prep proper and trying to actually gauge what your 5K pace can be. We're but like when this gets released, we're about 10 days out. So it's kind of last chance to hone in on what that goal pace should be. You might have a few days before any of this big intensity work that you do will actually be detrimental to your training session. So, Andrew, what would you recommend for people to do in the next few days if they're really not sure what they can run a 5K in? Are there any sessions they could do?
I think there's two good options of kind of a good predictor depending on which one you prefer. I think a classic is the 2 mile time trial, and that is kind of going out as hard as you can for that 2 miles. You're pretty fresh. And then kind of the guidelines around that is to multiply by around 1.5 to give your estimated 5K time. One that I tend to like more and that I actually do use more, and this is a session that is in my block, is doing a 3 by mile at your goal 5K pace. And I think this one's a little bit more manageable. You're still going at that pace and you're chunking it, which I think for a lot of people will be mentally a little bit easier. Do a shorter rest than your normal VO2, maybe about a minute and a half, depending, but can keep it moving. And the goal of this is you're doing your 5K distance, but you ideally, by the end of it, should not be feeling completely gassed and bent over like you will be at the 5K because you've done that continuous. And if that is what you get, then you can go into the race pretty confident that you timed that properly, can go out at that pace and hopefully maybe pick it up in that last, 400 meters during the race.
I mean, that's nice. I think I might have to try that coming soon. I know in marathon builds as well, it's a big stepping stone, that 3 by 1 mile, obviously at whatever pace that you're planning. But I think the 3 by 1 mile is a very good exercise to wrap your head around. You know that obviously that 3 by 1 mile piece will be your 5K. And like you said, Andrew, getting that rest in between kind of gives you that little bit of comfort that, okay, I know I'm going to get a rest after the mile itself, but then also knowing, hey, on race day, I could put these all together and come out with a good outcome.
Yeah, and I think there is kind of this, again, there's so much mental about the 5K that the 2 mile time trial I've found can actually make you a little bit more nervous for your 5K, because at the end of 2 miles all out, you're kind of dead. And you're like, I don't know if I could do another 1,700 meters on top of that almost just as fast. And so mentally, I feel like that one, well, it might be in some ways a more accurate predictor. I'm not really sure that everything we're operating on is a lot of rule of thumbs and not bro science, but boy science. But, that feeling that you get at the end of that 2 mile time trial can sometimes make you nervous for that race, because it starts to, kind of creep in some of those demons of, I don't know if I could continue to hold this pace. Whereas that 3 by 1 mile repeat, it definitely, like at the end of the session, you feel more confident, you feel prepared. So if I had to pick one and you had a few days to do one of these, like Andrew's recommendation of the mile repeats, I think, 3 by 1 mile is a good way to build some confidence as well as really hone in on what you can do on race day.
Now, if you're racing with us at the Night Shift 5K, I think unless you're doing one of those workouts either tonight or tomorrow, you might want to hold off because it is very close to race day. But for everyone else that's just training for a 5K, they're perfect. But there are still kind of 2 sessions, I would say, that are pretty good for building the confidence going into the race without them actually being very taxing on the body. And the first, and this one is not very taxing at all, but just kind of gets the legs spinning. That's kind of doing those race day strides that we were talking about before, and then kind of a tempo finish. So kind of doing a nice warm up and then doing kind of 6 by 8. You can kind of maybe swing up to 10 if you want, by about a 20-second stride at your target 5K pace, and then just kind of finishing it with maybe like a small tempo section at the end. So this will be super low stress on the body. It won't be very taxing leading into the Night Shift 5K, but it just builds that confidence, again, of that muscle memory of going at that pace, and just kind of gives you a little bit more confidence going to that start line.
Yeah, it's all about managing fatigue in these last, few weeks leading into race day. And I love this. And the one thing, oftentimes when you're in your block and you're far away from race day and you're doing strides, you're going all out. When you're doing strides at your 5K pace, it is not an all out effort. That's actually quite easy. You just kind of pick up the legs, focus on that cadence, but you're not like sprinting all out. That is hard on your body. You don't need to be doing these uphill. Like this is more so, like Andrew said, that confidence builder rather than a proper strides workout where you're gasping for air at the end of each of your strides. This should be very manageable. And I love that threshold at the end. You often see like beginner runners, they'll go out for an easy run and at the end, they'll like basically finish it within a VO2 max session. So just increasing that pace a little bit at the end, let those legs remember what those faster paces feel like is ideal.
Yeah, no, that's nice. And like you said, the usual stride that you see typically will be much faster than this. It's really, hey, keep the blade sharp, make sure the legs are still responding, but don't overwork the body. And yeah, I guess the other one that I know Andrew's going to get into, and I want to talk about it first, is because I love this, is the dress rehearsal run. Is one of my favorite runs of the block. Means, race day is coming, you're a few days out, and you're ready to rock and roll. Andrew, take it away.
I mean, yeah, this is a great one. This is just kind of the final chef's kiss of your block. The hay is in the barn, the work has been done, and this is really, as Pete once told me, this is really just don't get lazy. You got to still put in a little bit of work and keep those legs moving, used to moving at that certain pace.
As a wise man once said.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been lazy since, so it worked. But now, Tyler, I know you have some new ones in your arsenal, but this is a great time to test those, or to kind of do that finishing touches on your gear, your shoes, nutrition, just kind of dialing it all in, how it fits on you. So tell us about what kind of things you're testing and trying on that dress rehearsal.
Oh yeah, my favorite session, and I guess way to begin this, is obviously picking out the right outfit. So you're going to be looking at your race day outfit, making sure everything matches, making sure everything is comfortable, and you're not wearing a new shirt on race day. You try it out a little bit beforehand. You make sure everything's working out just fine. And of course, you put on those high heels and you make sure that they're spinning the way you want them to. So I think another reason why this is my favorite is you got to make sure you look good, you feel good, and then you'll perform good.
Yeah. And so I think the critical thing here is, of course, there's a benefit, there's confidence building in this, but you're not really building fitness at this point. You don't need to treat this as like a huge workout, but the visualization that you get from going into this session with the same gear, with that same warm-up routine, and then actually proving to yourself that pace is possible with all the prep for that 1 mile at goal race pace, that quick dress rehearsal, it's perfect. The psychological benefits can't be understated. I feel like going into race day, especially with those like taper jitters, I know this 5K ends up being in a lot of people's blocks. So for a lot of people, maybe you're not having those race day jitters, but it's likely that people are training for longer events. And so for those people who are training longer events, they might not know that they can actually hold their goal 5K pace. And so to be able to go run that a little bit the week of just reduces that anxiety, just proves to you that, your legs can move that and you're not going to be too winded at the end of that single mile at goal pace. So you're going to walk away with that from that session a few days out with, the confidence, I would say, at an all-time high.
Yeah, and then there's only one thing left, is that night before shakeout. So nothing too crazy, maybe 15 to 20 minutes, or depending on where you're at, you could also take this off if you're not doing too much volume. But I do think on the night before, it is good to just shake those legs, do a couple short strides, and again, not full out, just kind of move your body like you are striding, but kind of that 10 seconds at most. So maybe 50 to 70 meters or so. And this is really just, you want to kind of shake off the lead. You don't want your legs to feel heavy and dead the day before the race, but really the priority at this point is just getting that rest, a good sleep the night before, and then just go straight into race morning.
So we're hosting this race in the evening. Would you recommend that somebody go out in the morning to do a shakeout if they couldn't do something the day before and maybe they've actually driven down the day before and they didn't have time? Is it more beneficial to go out a little bit the day of 12 to 14 hours before they actually rip the race? Or is it better to just take that rest in?
I think going for a short run in the morning could be beneficial, or even right before. I know, depending on kind of what you're into or what kind of distances you do, if you're more of that diesel engine type, it takes a bit to get revving. So I know I do about a 5K warm up before I do a 5K race. So even just before, if you're a little bit more experienced, I would maybe warm up a little bit more with some serious strides to get ready to go to those paces. And then maybe if you're a little bit newer to the game, doing a little bit right before just to kind of wake up the legs would be a good idea. So to give yourself, maybe an hour, 30 minutes to kind of warm up is always a good idea.
Yeah, there's a reason that we're, opening the registration long before the first race actually takes off at 6. So if you're in one of those earlier heats, you want to be there the moment that registration opens, if not even before that, so that you can make sure that you register and then you have time to do a few loops of the track to, get some mobility in, whatever it might be, whatever feels comfortable to you. But yeah, you definitely don't want to hit the start line with that being your first stride of the day.
Yeah, actually, that's not a bad call. And also, we'll be there signing autographs very early as well. So make sure to come by and to check out the boys.
Okay, well, you heard it here. If you do want an autograph from Ty, make sure you print out one of the funny pictures that you can find of him online and get that Sharpie ready. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about kind of your expectations for the night shift. I know that we've got a ton of people coming. I just want to hear about what kind of like groups you think are going to be super competitive. Are there any people you're excited to see rip around that track who maybe it's their first 5K, or maybe they're going for a PR already?
Yeah, I'm pulling up some things here to look at some some stats, but I know the trend is pretty quick, and I think the 20 to 25 minute range is pretty stacked, as well as kind of the sub 20 range. So I think there's going to be some pretty interesting things there, and I think our first heat I don't know how much sub 20, but it's definitely going to be sub 20, where maybe that second heat is going to be the sub 20 race. So that's definitely one that I'll be watching out for, is the people that are lining up for sub 20, and if, depending how it works out, as if they're the ones breaking the tape for that second heat. So I think that should be fun.
Yeah, I know there's a few people who have entered their times as like 1950 something or 1940. So I think there's going to be a really great battle of people who are either breaking 20 for the first time or are comfortable at that pace and are looking to rip it again. I know my little cousin, and Tyler, you're going to be, sad to hear this. James is going for sub 20 at this event. So I think this will be his second time doing it, but he'll be running alongside, some big bodies who are also pushing to do it. I know two guys from Brock rowing, Matt Finley and Eric Wolfel. The two of them have been going back and forth a little bit on Instagram, seeing who can beat who. And I think Eric was a top 3 at the last one. So there's, some really good competition that I'm excited to see around that 1959 group.
I'm super excited to see those amazing battles and the speedy people out there, but also big shout out to all those first time runners. Seems like we have at least 9 first timers and maybe some other ones that are incognito or prefer not to say if they're first time runners. So those will be interesting as well. Super cool to see them join the game, clock in for the night shift, and my favorite part, under the lights, of course.
Yeah, and I think we have to give a big shout out to all of the mostly local businesses that are helping make this thing happen. Without them, we wouldn't have been able to do this. We wouldn't be able to do it. We wouldn't have been able to do it for $20. We wouldn't have been able to provide the Niagara community so much on race night, because there is a bunch of fun, exciting things. There's going to be a ton of prizes. It's basically to the point where almost everyone either with registration or night of is going to be walking away with a prize or something that is valued more than that $20 pretty much. So yeah, just a huge shout out to all of the businesses that showed up, donated either time, showing up race night, putting up prizes, helping us with marketing, spreading the word. So yeah, it's been incredible.
Yeah, it's quite amazing. I'm excited to see, of course, the familiar faces who have been supporting us as we've gone from like very grassroots with like just a table and I don't know, like a sheet of paper to now where we have thousands of dollars of prizes. It's like an official event. This feels like it's amazing the coordination that you guys have done, especially given that I was absent for so long. Yeah, it's just incredible to see like the progress that we've made in terms of the organization aspect of what we can achieve. And the run, the night, the smiles that we see, the PRs that we hear, that's all gravy for all the hard work that you guys have put in. So I'm super thrilled to be able to like provide this to the community, and I'm excited also to see like how this can be leveraged, like everything that we built for places like Toronto or Ottawa, where we know there's a lot of fans and a lot of people who have been messaging us wanting to do this in their city also. Ty, I know you mentioned a few of the Ottawa boys were wondering when they get a 5K.
Oh, exactly. They're jealous, and I'm just holding them off right now. Yeah, we're highly anticipated here in the 613, but I mean, it's definitely going to happen. And like you said, this is the first, or not the first, but the third year running, but the first, let's call it, real big official version of it. And yeah, we can't wait to see what happens beyond this. So it's going to be fun. I'm excited.
Now, it's not all fun and games, because the one very sad thing I would say about this edition is that it is going to be the first edition that we're kind of stripping away the main thing that we started this for, and that was for us to get a 5K tune-up race in our blocks. So the three of us will just be running the event, will not be racing, which will be a little sad, but who knows, maybe we'll hop in to do a little bit of pacing, maybe for the relay, depending how the night goes. But it is nice to share the love and share the speed with the community and kind of pass that on to other people that are preparing for races.
Exactly. I am envious right now that we can't run the 5K, but once I see the first wave of people finishing their 5K and I see the pain on their faces, that's when I'll be, a little bit glad that I didn't have to do it, but I will be jealous of all those people who get to ring that beautiful PR bell that will be debuting for the first time ever, thanks to Andrew who picked one up.
Yeah, have to give a huge shout out to my parents, my family, and yeah, my dad has been working on the bell, and he actually made some bell upgrades because the first setup didn't sound good enough. So everyone is in for a treat.
All I gotta say is don't tell the union.
Yeah, don't tell the union and don't tell the neighbors around there. We might be breaking the noise bylaw, especially if we can really whip people in, give them some, good competition. I think people will be surprised on just how fast they can run a 5K around a track with a group that is competing with them. I know like our previous 5Ks have been wonderful that like everybody's ending together and you're sort of racing to that finish line, but kind of racing against people from the start adds another level of complexity. And around the track, it's fast, it's smooth, and you know exactly what you need to do. 12 and a half turns as fast as you can do it. And so I think, there's a lot of hype from the community of people really wanting to prove their fitness to themselves.
Yeah, this is firing me up. This whole episode was getting me geared for that 5K, and I can't wait to hear that bell.
Now I understand why you got up.
Yeah. We apologize for your ears if that was a little unprompted. But yeah, I'm super thrilled. This is going to be a good one, and I'm excited also that it's under the lights. Like that's like a novelty. It's always fun running at night, but like being under the lights at a track is not something that most people in their adulthood get as an organized event. So to be able to provide that is just super cool.
Yeah, well, that's a wrap. I hope that kind of these collection of workouts and strategies will help you with either the night shift 5K with a couple of those 2 weeks before workouts or the next 5K that you're training for. And I hope they set you up for success to be able to ring that PR bell at the event. We'll definitely have one at the Night Shift 5K, and I hope the other events will have one there for you too, because a 5K is not easy, so you deserve to ring that bell.
Totally. And quick ask before you go, if you are racing the Night Shift 5K on April 4th, make sure you're registered. Come find us at the start line. And if you can, share that registration link with another runner. And if you enjoyed this podcast, send this along to them as well. Word of mouth is everything for us. It's how we grow.
I'm going to jump in here quick, Tyler, before you send us off. And if you've made it this far, you deserve this call out. But we sent out a referral code to everyone that has registered so far. And if you share that referral code with someone that you can convince to race, friends, family, whatever, if they use that to register, you'll be entered in to win a $25 gift card to Runner's Edge. The top person will get a $25 Runner's Edge gift card, and if you're not the top, but you refer at least 5 people, you'll get a $10 Bright Pours Cafe gift card. So convince those friends and make sure they use that code, because we want to give out gift cards.
That's a lot of value.
Geez, that's nice. Yeah, that's really nice. I might even refer some people get that gift card. Geez Louise. And yeah, last but not least, big disclaimer here. We are not medical professionals. We are just boys, BOIS, that love running and talk about it. Yeah, we're not doctors. We're not medical professionals, though we wish we were. Everything we talk about today is based on our own experiences and our own research that we do just for fun. So if you're coming from an injury, make sure you talk to someone special.
All right, that's wonderful. So that's it from us. Whatever race you're building towards, remember the work that you put in between now and the start line is the only thing that you can control. So put in that work, and we'll see you at the Night Shift 5K.